Hi, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to Listen Closely. My name is Elle, and I'm your host. Today, the topic of this episode is don't be a menace, right? And depending on what your background is, there are probably one of three things that can pop into your mind when you hear the word menace. Either Dennis the Menace, the little cartoon strip, Don't Be a Menace to Society, the movie,
or the classic Don't Be a Menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood.
It just depends on your background and how you grew up. A coworker actually sparked the idea for this episode when I saw her driving past me in the parking lot. It's a coworker that I've had issues with in the past, and she drove past me in the parking lot, and my first thought when I saw her was, that woman is such a menace. And honestly, I've never called anyone a menace a day in my life, but that's literally the perfect word to describe this woman and her behavior consistently. She is a little terrorizer. And if I can, not even, all bias aside, she's not just a menace to me. She's a menace to probably the entire establishment that I work at. And if I can be a little graceful, one thing I can be honest and say is I don't believe that she does it on purpose. I don't believe that she is even aware of the chaos that she causes. I don't believe she realizes she is the problem. I do believe some people are unaware that it's them that is causing chaos, that it's their own actions that are causing problems from job to job to job, from relationship to relationship to relationship, from circumstance to circumstance to circumstance. I truly believe the people who are menaces in your life don't realize that they are the problem. But this led me down the rabbit hole to look more into what is a menace and why do some people absolutely love chaos. We're going to explore that more. Stay tuned.
So what is a menace? The definition of a menace is someone or something
that is perceived as a threat, but not necessarily as an imminent threat or a direct one. For example, a person who repeatedly engages in reckless behavior on the road may be considered a menace to other drivers, even if they haven't caused an accident just yet. So as I looked at this woman and I placed her in my mind as a menace, I started to look at other areas of my life to see who else is a little bit of a menace, whether it's from family members to colleagues to friends. Am I a menace, right? Because it's always good to look inward. And then I just started to realize, there are people who do this. There are people who terrorize others. Some people do it for their own joys. They call it stirring the pot. They say fire starters. Whatever word you want to use or expression, they're probably still, at their core, just a menace. And that led me to wonder why some people love chaos. And I came to find that there is something called a chaos addiction. And we will explore that further.
Okay, so we know what it means to be a menace, and we also know that there's something called a chaos addiction. And here's where our compassion has to kick in. I need you to imagine a person who had a very quote-unquote normal childhood. There was no family drama. They They didn't struggle financially. And there was no real significant problems that this person had to deal with as a child. They were genuinely content, and their needs were always met. Their family showed them love and kindness, and they were never subjected to things like abuse or abandonment or neglect of any kind. Now I need you to imagine someone on the other hand. Consider someone who had a really rocky upbringing. Maybe they were burdened with heavy responsibilities at a young age. Or maybe they were exposed to things that stole their innocence. Their childhood was characterized by instability, and they might have had a lot of negative emotions that stemmed from it. Like having to move multiple times, or even abruptly. Being exposed to crime and criminal thinking, violence in the home, violence against each other, violence against other people, drug use, drug abuse, right? Or even the absence of a parent that might lead to feelings of anger, neglect, or abandonment. People have different experiences that shape them. So now as adults, these two people will have polarizing views on life. One of them is probably going to be attracted to safety, and one of them is probably going to be attracted to chaos. When someone grows up in a chaotic environment, they might subconsciously choose things that mimic that environment. This is all that feels comfortable to them. They don't really know anything different, and they might create chaos in their own lives and other people's lives without actually meaning to. When people come from chaotic backgrounds grow up, they're either going to adopt that same worldview, being attracted to chaos, or they might be drawn to stability and want the complete opposite. People who are raised in unstable environments might seek out things that mirror their upbringing because it feels familiar, it feels comfortable. They might create problems in their lives and the lives of others without realizing, and then wonder why chaos follows them. It's not chaos following you. You're making it. You might have a chaos addiction if, bear with me, this is a little bit lengthy. There are 5 indicators. Obviously, there may be more, but we're going to talk about these 5. Number 1, you find healthy relationships boring. A relationship that has healthy communication and trust is many people's dream. But for someone who's attracted to chaos, a healthy relationship can feel uneasy. They're probably aware that the relationship is good for them, but they can't help feeling like some drama might make things more exciting. They want to spice it up. Peace is not fun. It's not what they're used to. We kind of see this when it comes to people being in toxic relationships or saying that they're attracted to toxic people. It might be someone who's overly jealous, someone who starts fights without cause, someone who's overly controlling, even when it comes to being unfaithful. A lot of people these days are attracted to partners who treat them badly. And it's typically a trauma response. It's a reaction to the chaotic environment of their childhood. When their partner seems too perfect, it makes them feel uneasy. They're used to uncertainty. They're used to the up and down. So they're constantly expecting something bad to happen. And relationships that are healthy feel too good to be true. And here's where a fear of abandonment might be present. So to avoid their partner leaving them or abandoning them, the person might become extremely controlling. They might deliberately create chaos in the relationship because all they know is that up and down. Peace is too foreign. It's too uncomfortable. Number 2, you seem to create drama in your friend groups or in workplaces. Some people feel like drama follows them everywhere. Maybe it does, or maybe they're creating it without realizing it. When you have unprocessed issues, it can show up in life as anger and destructive ways of living. An addiction to chaos might leave someone who's starting arguments out of the blue or engaging in toxic things like bullying and gossip. We all know people like that. A lot of the time, interestingly enough, it can feel like they're the victim, but it's their own behaviors that caused the problem in the first place. It's a little bit different when it comes to having to deal with people in the workplace, because everyone's not going to be willing to deal with this person's toxic behaviors. It's not going to fly in the workplace. I don't know you. I don't need to put up with you. Right? But when it's your family members, they're more accepting of your bad behaviors because it's your normal. But the outside world might not be so willing. So that's why there might be a lot of chaos in friendship groups and workplaces, because other people might not be willing to put up with that toxic stuff that you do. Number 3, you don't know how to set boundaries, or you might overstep other people's boundaries. After living a life where unhealthy behaviors were normalized, someone might have issues with setting boundaries. They may not know how to say no. That is such a real thing. If you're used to being the mule for other people's problems, you're used to being someone else's punching bag, you might accept that behavior as normal because it makes you uncomfortable to start conflict, or you're just trying to avoid conflict, so you just accept anything from anyone, and it's not okay. It's okay to say no. Or maybe because their boundaries were violated. They might violate other people's boundaries in the future, and it might not even be a conscious thing. It might be because they never learned how to respect other people's boundaries because their boundaries were never taken into consideration. Number 4, you seem to blow things out of proportion. People who didn't learn how to healthily express themselves may overreact to certain situations. Of course, everyone's feelings are valid. However, people can blow things out of proportion. I feel like I might have been guilty of this in the past, honestly. This may be because any sign of threat can send that individual into survival mode, and as we all know, someone in survival mode can be dangerous and unpredictable. So here's an example. A friend just blows you off and decides to stay home instead of following through with your plans. You might take that as they betrayed you. That's kind of extreme. Or maybe a colleague asked them to do something and they respond with anger. Again, is this the proper response to the stimulus? Or here's another example. Someone makes a passing comment about them and they just take it extremely personally. Once again, this is a trauma response. Any action directed towards the person can trigger them into some feelings from their chaotic past, even if it's not intentional, even though it's a little bit out of proportion. This is an indicator right here that you might have a chaos addiction. They may overreact to push people away to avoid being hurt in the future. And the last indicator I'm going to talk about is number 5. You engage in destructive behaviors. People who are addicted to chaos have a higher chance of suffering from other forms of addiction. The most common destructive behaviors are all about a lack of control or about asserting control. When someone is used to being in toxic situations, they may overextend control in parts of their lives in order to feel a sense of normality. Eating disorders, compulsive disorders, having addictions to work and being overly proactive are ways that someone can exert control over their life. Or someone might take part in behaviors to release control and have a sense of freedom. But this can be dangerous. They can be thrill-seeking, doing reckless driving, having unprotected sex, abusing drugs. Things like this can really be devastating for someone's life. Being addicted to chaos means that a person has developed a pattern of behavior where they are continuing to seek out or make situations that are full of confusion, disorder, instability. They thrive off of that. They like the rush that comes with this instability and being in turmoil. They kind of feel uneasy when things are peaceful and calm. While some people may be attracted to chaos because they find it exciting or stimulating, addiction to chaos can be harmful in the long run. Okay, Elle, so where do I go from here? What's next? How do I fix this? It's not going to be easy, but if this is you, using affirmations can help you navigate a healthy relationship that feels uneasy. Remind yourself of what is good for you. You have to work to open up communication and trust with your partner so that you can understand each other better. You have to actually let your partner know that you may need a little reassurance sometimes. You have to practice a commitment to self-awareness. You have to analyze your actions and think before you act. Before you start gossiping and partaking in drama, ask yourself, could this thing I'm doing right now result in something negative? Is there going to be a repercussion after this? Is this the most compassionate way that I can deal with this situation? Reflect. Pay attention to your part in this scenario. What am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Communication is key. Work on stating your own boundaries and be mindful of respecting other people's. It's okay to say no. You don't have to please everyone. In the same way, it's okay when people say no to you. You don't need to take it personally when somebody doesn't jump to appease you. They're just stating their own boundaries, and that's fine. Asking yourself, does this feel right, can be a good way of determining how you truly feel about a situation. Think before you act. Gauge whether something truly needs an emotional response from you. Remember that if it makes you uncomfortable, such as like a friend canceling plans on you, you just have to communicate with this person. You can say, please let me know a little bit further in advance if you're going to cancel. Sometimes that makes me feel uneasy or unwanted. And if that's your friend, they will understand, and now you can communicate better with this person in the future. They're going to respect that. They're going to respect you and your honesty and try to understand you if they really are your friend. But that's a whole nother story. And last but not least, seek support from a mental health professional and put some plans in place to keep you on track. You have to speak with people who are close to you and ask them if they'll hold you accountable. You have to create healthy habits and disciplined practices that will stop you from doing these destructive behaviors. Overall, a little chaos is present in all of our lives. But when it becomes an addiction, there may be some unhealthy patterns that you have to actually work on. In conclusion, these are ways an addiction to chaos can manifest. Constantly creating drama or conflict in your personal relationships, seeking out risky or dangerous situations. You go looking for that. Engaging in impulsive behavior or making impulsive decisions, right? Procrastinating or avoiding your responsibilities, which leads to last-minute chaos, sabotaging your own success or progress. For many adults, chaos and negativity are a part of their identity. People use their experiences to define themselves, and they continue to share those experiences with others. They talk about it. However, this mindset often leads to the individual unconsciously adopting the role of victim. Despite their desire to change, they've already identified as a victim in their minds. By focusing on negative cycles and chaos, they are creating more of the same. Your thoughts and words, they create an energy around you and in your life. What you focus on is what you will attract. Therefore, if you consistently talk about the chaos in your life and consider it a part of your story, don't be surprised when you walk into more chaos over and over and over again. When you find yourself telling the same story about some negative event, when you feel like chaos is becoming a part of your identity, you have to refocus. Ask yourself, what can I be grateful for? What can I celebrate? What's a success that I can share with my friends and family? In order to effectively start changing your mindset, you have to first realize that you can be something other than a victim. Replace your old story with a new one. A lot of people who seem to attract constant chaos, the reality is they bring it in so that they can continue to sit in that identity. They focus, they stay right there on the negative. Once you start to understand that you're free to change your story, your thoughts, your conversations, your actions, you'll begin to realize that chaos will lose a grip on your life. You're free to change your story.
So one piece of advice from me to you is that the realization that we are doing it to ourselves is our biggest blessing. If we know we can create our own misery, I wonder what would happen if we tried to create our own joy. There's so much power in that. Once again, my name is Elle. Thank you so much for listening. This is Listen Closely. Take care.